It's really nice that so many of you here. It's lovely, and let's make this fun. So hopefully you'll say lots of things, and we can have it so it doesn't get, boring. We can make it fun. And what we've done is we've got loads of clips. We've got clips we've made 5 films together, and we've got clips from the 5 films. And what we're going to try and do, we're going to start with the first. Ollie wanted to do start with the first film we did together, and but then things that you say or things that you want to know or comments, we might zip around and do them out of order. But we thought we'd start with the first film, didn't you? You said that would be a good idea.
Well, I just thought I was remembering last night when I first met Kim, and what happened first was I got a phone call. She'd just done Divorce Iranian Style, and I got a phone call from her, and she said, "Peter Dale recommended you to me." I was so nervous. I was thinking, "My God, Kim!" Sorry.
You're not here.
Sorry. Okay, I'll speak a bit louder. Sorry, I was very nervous. Kim called me, and I'm a bit nervous now. And we met on that first day. We went into the edit suite. We were making a film called Runaway about a centre for runaway girls in Tehran, and with Ziba Mir Hosseini. And Ziba wasn't there that first day, I remember, and we started looking at rushes, and neither of us spoke Farsi, and it was the strangest thing. It's like I'm working with this incredibly well-known and fantastic filmmaker.
Don't say things like that.
Sorry, really annoying. And but I was a bit in awe after that film, and I remember watching the rushes, and we just sat and we looked at something in Farsi, and I'd done films in foreign languages before, or bits of them were in foreign, but to watch it without Ziba translating for us, I don't know, I remember it now as a sort of quite emblematic thing, because what we try and do in the films that we make together is really make people watch, hold an image, hold a shot, in order for the audience to kind of really take part in it. And I remember watching that on that first day, those rushes, thinking, wow, must be the way that Kim films it. She doesn't understand the language, and yet she's really looking very, very clearly at what is going on intuitively, and we sort of got into that together. You actually watch very, very clearly. Watching the rushes is the most important part of the editing process. Anyway, certainly at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I feel quite passionately about editing, I must say. I think this is my point of view, which is why we thought we'd do this, is I think it's the most sort of, I think it's the most craft or art or whatever it is about making films. It's the most difficult thing, and it's the sort of it's weird because it looks easy. What Ollie does is he makes it look incredibly easy, but I think it's the most difficult thing. And I always sit in every single day, however long he wants to edit. He normally finishes at 6, but I watch the whole day, and I learn so much from watching the edit and watching how he edits. But I know that we've done 6 together, and I know if I watched him editing 20 films, I just am not an editor, and I don't even know what it is that makes Ollie an editor. It's not. It's what I've discovered is it's nothing you can learn. It's very peculiar, because you can learn to do camera, and there's basic things you can learn to make sure the camera works. It's not that difficult. But you can't learn to edit. I can't learn to edit. I mean, obviously I can see, I know the rudiments of it, and I could push the buttons and everything. But what Ollie will do is he'll look at a scene, and I think also if you're involved in your own material as well, it makes it harder because you've been there. So, for example, I'll say to Ollie, there's, like in Rough Aunties, we went and looked for this baby in the bush, and we'll have been walking for hours and hours. So in my mind, it's this kind of trek through the bush to look for an abandoned baby, and then you get somewhere. Whereas Ollie will just do one shot, probably just the road, which is where we got out to start walking, and then you're into the scene. And I think, yes, but I would never have done that myself, or if I would have done it, it would have taken me weeks to get there, gradually chopping it down. Also, the other thing that Ollie can do, apart from lateral thinking, which is a weird sort of way of thinking of seeing connections between things that I can't necessarily see, because I'm thinking very much, this happened then, and then this happened then. He'll sometimes put something in which has the same emotional truth to it, but is from maybe that morning or another day. But the other thing that Ollie will do, I think editors will do, is they'll look at a scene and they'll choose maybe 2 shots that say what the scene is. You get the scene in 2 shots. Whereas I'm sure I would be tempted, and I know, I'd just chop a lot of shots shorter. You know what I mean? I'd kind of whittle away to try and get everything I've shot in. And that's how I would look at it. And no matter how many times I watch him do it, I just can't see how, I'm sorry to say him, how you do it. Because I'm talking to you guys and also to him, so it's a bit odd. But anyway, no matter how many times, and a lot of this, because when Min Hussain were choosing these clips for you, I sort of realised that most of the clips, the shortest is about 3 minutes and the longest is about 5 minutes. Most of them, you'll notice, are maybe 2 or 3 shots, and it'll tell the scene. So, and we've got one scene I really want to show you, which, anyway, so you were going to...
Should we have a look at the first thing which is Runaway? Yeah, I can remember doing it. It was about first few weeks into the film. I was still nervous at that point. Zeba and Kim were sitting beside me, and when you came in with the rushes on that film, it was shot on film, Runaway, and it was like 12 hours or something. I mean, I've been used to like 50, 60 hours. It was shot on film, so obviously it's a lot more expensive than tape. And there wasn't a lot of fat. There wasn't a lot of kind of cutaways. Kim is absolutely obsessed, really dedicated to people and how they speak and how they interact with each other. But we'd seen one scene where a little girl sings, does the Arabic call to prayer, and I don't know, I had an idea that would make a good opening. So if we could have a look at that, Runaway.
And she looks a bit self-conscious, but she's not self-conscious. She's waiting for the minute to start doing the prayer. Because when I was choosing it, I thought the guy who was cutting it said, are you cueing her? And I'm in the thought of doing that. Call to prayer now, isn't it? No, but she's waiting for the exact time when she's meant to do it. And the thing we always have we spend most time on is how to start a film, is how to actually introduce it. So that's...
Yeah. What actually happened with this, I remember, is people often ask me, how do you do it and stuff, obviously, like maybe you guys want to know. But you don't always get it right first time. You never get it right first. Very rarely get it right first time. Yeah, there are some scenes that you get right. But in this, I remember there's a beautiful walk-in at dawn into the Rehana, the centre for runaway girls. And that was my opening idea. That was my first start, my first stab at the beginning. And then this call to prayer, and then we just married the two together, and it seemed to work. So, yeah, here we go. It was a few days ago.
Do we need to sit down?
وقتی میخوام ببرنت عزیزم برای چی ناراحتی؟ نه چرا نمیخوای بری پیششون؟ این ناراحتی چی هست؟ اینجا خودت میدونی موقتمون کار بچه‌ها رو راه میندازیم که زودتر برن. میدونم سخته، میدونم محدودیت تو خونه سخته، ولی اگه دختر باهوشی باشی خودتو تو اون شرایط با اون خانواده وقت میدی.
با خانواده هیچ کس نمیتونه کنار بیاد.
همینا میگم. من میدونم، من مادرتو دیدم، میدونم منم با شاید با اون نتونم کنار بیام. ولی چاره چیه؟ چاره فرار از خونه است. چاره اینه که بزنیم بیایم بیرون از خونه بگیم آی ملت بیاید من کمک کنید، من اینا با خانواده‌ام ناسازگارم. هیچ کس مثل خانواده‌ات باز نمیتونن
خانم شما الان راحت که به خانواده‌تونی چرا صبح تا ظهر اینجا
از کجا میدونی؟
شب
از کجا
شما
می‌دونی ما
خودتون
مشکل
راحت
نداریم؟
زندگیتون رو حالا شما نمیتونید ما رو
چرا نمیشینی؟ با فرار کار درست نمیشه، چیزی حل نمیشه. میخوای کجا بری؟ به کی میخوای پناه بیاری؟ به خدا اینا کمکت نمیکنن. اینا همه گرگن. از تو چی میخوان؟ فکر می‌کنی یه دختر چی میخوان؟ یه دختر مجرد، یه دختر که تازه به سن بلوغ رسیده، دختر زیبا، دست نخورده، چی میخوان اینا؟ اون مادری که داره سختگیری میکنه دلسوزته که داره سختگیری میکنه.
نمیخوام دلسوزش بکنم دوست دارم.
نمیخواد که تو این جامعه پرپر بشی.
موقعی که میذارن اصلا فکر بچه هاشون نمیکنن، تون پای سرم خجالت هم نمیکشم. بیارشون سفیده رو یه دقیقه.
بیا.
اینجا خیلی دلم بر مامانم تنگ شده. خدا چی میشد مامانم بود. نمیدونم چرا من به همه نمش میگم دلم برای مامانم تنگ شده. مامانم اصلا نمیاد. فکر نکنم من دوست داشته باشه ولی من دوستش دارم.
میشه مادر دخترش دوست نداشته باشه.
شاید بشه.
من که ندیدم.
خدا اینقدر منتظر مامانم، اینقدر منتظر مامانم، نمیدونم. همش فکر مادر برادرم بودم. وای کی بود خدایا، دیشب بود یا نه کی بود، دیروز نه 5 روز فکر کنم، نه دو سه روز دیگه. و من خواب دیدم. خب چیز یعنی نه فکر می‌مد شیطونه گولم می‌زد، میگفت مامانت مرده، بابات مرده، داداشت مرده. این فکر رو می‌کردم دیگه، ترسیده بودم. نشستم نصف شب دارم گریه می‌کنم. همینجا میمونی؟
نمیدونم، من مشخص نیست.
چرا؟
نه دوست دارم برم خونه، نه دوست دارم اینجا بمونم.
هم میخواد کجا تو خیابون بهمون رضا راست میگم، به قرآن به عنوان یه فرد کوچیک‌تر از خودت باور کن جای بهتر از اینجا نمیتونی پیدا کنی. حالا ببین به نظر خود من اینجا خیلی بهشته، اینو بهش میمونه. از خانواده‌ام که از خونه‌مون بهتره به خدا. از نظر کتک راحتم، نظر فوش خوردن راحتم، از نظر چیا راحتم، خیلی چیزا راحتم من.
The reason we chose Runaway was because we felt that she was the most like us, that she's not being beaten, she's not being made to go with her father's friends, or you know, she's kind of just can't bear the restrictions and can't bear her being at home, and actually loves her parents but can't bear being in that kind of a family situation. So I've noticed that's what we normally do in the beginning of the film. It's kind of trying to show a bit of, because there's this whole thing about context, and we're all very different. I don't know what you guys think about this whole thing about context, because what we're trying to do is set up a kind of a context at the beginning of the film which tells you a bit about the place. So you've got one little girl saying, you know, home is hell, this place is paradise, and that it's a refuge, and but without us having to say in a voiceover, this is a refuge for runaway girls, we've got nowhere else to go. Do you see what I mean? So we're trying to do it through a scene, and then the film starts for real after that scene. It's the beginning of the film, you know. So
I think we're both really interested in the film being an experience, that us, all we should experience it, not be told stuff. You should learn stuff, or we should discover stuff more, and that I mean, that's why I sort of touched on earlier about holding shots. And when I look at that now, I realise it was so liberating to work with Kim and to work on a longer form film. I think it was the first long form film I'd done, and I knew it might be shown in a cinema or a festival, or maybe somewhere on a larger screen, not just on the TV. And it was great just to be able to say, right, fuck it, I'm just going to hold the shots long. We're just going to watch this. This is a world we don't really know very much about, and let's just see these people and see their faces. And you know, you don't know where you are here. You don't know that you're in.
Because I learnt an awful lot through camera, through working with Ollie, because he would tell me, and but I'll never forget, there's one scene in Sisters-in-Law in a prison where this woman who we've been filming starts crying, and I remember really vividly Ollie saying, Kim, if only you'd held that just a couple of seconds longer, would have been really good. And actually thinking, and I've always remembered that. So then I remember I was scared of losing the person we were filming. I had to run after, but you can always hold for a couple of seconds. And then Ollie will be pleased and he'll be able to
be nice to you.
have an end to his shot. But, you know, and he'll say, well, maybe you should have filmed, you know, and I'm learning a lot from, when I watch him cutting, it's not just that I'm wanting to be there all the time, but when I watch him cutting the scene, I can see whether I've shot it well or badly. I can learn from that about how to do it better in the future. So each one I'm trying to get a bit better to make the cutting more pleasurable for him, because it's falling into place easier. Because I've cut it with him in mind of how he wants to. I've shot it with the cutting in mind for him.
Does anyone want to ask a question?
Yeah, I'd love it if you say something.
Yeah.
Because then, you know,
Can't
we'd
see
know.
anybody, but
Yeah, look, they're standing up there. That's great. Good. Thank you. Oh, great. Somebody is going to ask something.
It's just really in relation to the difference in the form. It's great listening to you talk about it as a filmmaking.
Yeah.
Rather than the journalism, and your point about not using voiceover, because it's been so frustrating to watch television get increasingly paced, and yet, and also the preponderance of the not so much the spoken word as sync, but either voiceover or lots of queuing up. So I'm imagining that is a fundamental difference in your approach anyway, that you are filmmaking more than program making, or it's a broad generalisation. I realise.
I mean, that's interesting, really. Penny Wilcott gave a really good speech. Apparently, I wasn't there at the Griersons, and she did this whole thing about. There's one thing I can't bear. It's being told what you're going to see in the next when you get on Channel 4 or commercial time when there's going to be breaks. And I shout at the telly when you get. They tell you what you're going to see in the next bit, and then.
The picture.
Yeah, and sometimes they show you the most dramatic scene of the whole film at the beginning of the film, and then when you come to it, you've already seen it. But then also at the second part, they tell you what you've just seen, as if when you go and make a cup of tea or somehow, you've been smoking so much dope that you can't even remember what it's really weird that. But at the same time, I'm a really big telly fan. I love watching TV, and I really feel that we're so lucky to have Channel 4. They do put, but what I watch a lot of is fiction. I learn an awful lot from watching fiction films. So I watch all the Mad Men, all the Breaking Bad, all of the Sopranos, all of those things, because I just love the way they edit and the way they pace things. And so I'm trying to shoot in that way, because what also I find really upsetting is when fiction's trying to look like documentaries, but they do it with this really horrible. They think if they do it really horrible camera work, then people are going to think it's real. But you know what I mean? But
Absolutely.
you don't need to do it like that. So,
No, you don't.
But anyway,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for asking a question. Actually, you didn't. You just said something, which is even better.
I had a question just about how much time you guys spend together in the editing room, how much time you're there together, how much time Ollie's there by himself, because everybody works differently.
Very rare that I'm there by myself.
He's never there on his own. And I remember one time there was an editor, we were sharing a edit suite with another editor, and he actually came out, we were having a cup of tea and a bit of a giggle about something, and he came out and he said to Ollie in front of me, I don't know how you can bear to have her here all the time. Didn't he? He said, I couldn't bear to have the person in there, only allowed in at the end, when I've done it. But actually, I don't ever... I mean, the thing is, I never... If Ollie says actually, we've only got 2 clips, which is something that... one of them was me and Amber really wanted it in the film, and Ollie didn't want it in the film. We just said, we'll try it. Because he knows that if I really care about having something in the film, he always tries it, see if it'll work. Because I very rarely say anything. I'm just sitting there really quietly and watching it with him, and just watching how he works. It's not like, this is his job, and I'm there, and I make him loads of tea, far more than he wants.
Loads.
And, but it's just a learning thing for me. I don't, it's not like... Whereas this other guy, he says sometimes he gets lists. He gets what he called edit
list or...
something. He had, and, that he does it that way. But I would never do that. Because actually... Paper edit, that's what he says he gets, yeah.
I think a lot of it is trust. you know, the best experiences you have as an editor, and I'm sure as a director, is if you share a room with someone that you trust. And if someone's really stressed out, if someone's, you know, if either of us are, then it's not going to work. You're going to work, and Kim and I both, well, Kim's definitely taught me that she's very into people having a voice. That's the kind of films that she's always wanted to make. That's a lot of who she is. And I think working with her has allowed me to have a voice. And so we have a very honest and, you know, open discussions about what we do.
Well.
Loads of fun. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
It's you know,
but also,
it wasn't always. I mean, it was kind of, you know, it took time for us to kind of get to know each other and stuff.
But what I love about working with Ollie as well, because I'm, you know, it's not saying it's a really bad thing. I'm a bit too. I get quite emotional about things, but Ollie's much worse than me. Because like, I remember on Runaway, the first scene he saw, even though we didn't have a translation, I told him what it was.
Yeah.
He had to go out for a walk, and he was in an absolute...
She always says this.
It's true, though.
You say about every film. I don't. Some of them. Some of the really hardcore ones. I don't remember on Runaway, did I?
Yeah, the girl that was raped by her dad, and the policeman wouldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was heavy shit. Yeah. I think you have to. I mean, I'm a very sensitive person. I know Kim is. So you know, you do have to care. You do have to get stuck into it. You do have to imagine yourself as these people. You have to. And you have to know, you feel there's a responsibility to putting them up on a screen like this, you know. I mean, Kim doesn't, I would have answered your question that I don't know whether it's a film or a program, but it's a film about people. That's what it is. It's not about an issue, it's about people. And that's what I spend an awful lot of time thinking about when I'm doing it. You know, there sometimes a lot of the people are in a really, really tricky place, and what you show is very important. And yet, you know, often, always nearly, they want, this is their space, this is their moment, it feels, to say. In fact, there's a clip later in Rough Aunties where someone, Mildred, one of the main protagonists, does an interview, and you feel this is the first time in her life that she can say what she wants to say, and she does it to the camera, and it's, I don't know, it's very moving.
She sort of chose the moment.
She chose the moment, and it happens like, it's a bit like the girl right at the very front doing the call to prayer. I feel like she was so proud.
So proud.
She's so proud.
Yeah.
And she's puffing herself up, and it's.
And the little story behind that is that girls aren't allowed to sing. And girls aren't allowed to do the call to prayer. That's why she was so proud she'd been asked to do it. And we wouldn't have been allowed to film her singing if she'd reached puberty, because it's against the law for girls to sing if they've reached puberty. So that was like, there's all sorts of other little layers to that, to having a film. It's quite sort of transgressive to have at the beginning of an Iranian film a girl singing, but we were able to do it because she was under the, you know, so, because you never hear that, do you, with the muezzin and everything, it's always men, so there's another little layer to that as well. But should we show, because we could show another opening for a film, which is Sisters-in-Law. I don't really know, because I don't know many people, but I don't know if you've seen Sisters-in-Law. Yeah. I can see them.
Oh, good.
I feel very comfortable, but nice
good.
Actually. I feel they're all we're all the same.
We're all in
together in it. But I don't know if you've seen Sisters-in-Law, because we had real, it's the thing that Ollie often takes the longest to do, is to make the beginning. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to set up an atmosphere. You're trying to tell people about who the characters are and where they are. And I remember with Sisters-in-Law, we knew we wanted a scene that showed Vera what kind of person Vera was, who's one of the main characters, the lawyer, but also wasn't going to be something that was a story that was going to go all the way through, because we had these quite dramatic stories going all the way through, and it was just like a story showing you what the context was they were working in. So like when people sometimes say to us, "Oh, Ollie, you didn't tell us the context of Cameroon," and they mean things like, how, you know, why do people speak in Pidgin? What's the sort of political background of it being English speaking? And then very obvious things like how many women judges there are. That's one thing one of my best friends said to me. She wanted to know how many women judges there are. And I remember writing that down and feeling really upset and thinking, okay, it is interesting because there's a lot of women judges in Cameroon, which is what's quite unusual. But then I went home and I thought, I'm glad we didn't say how many women judges there are, because there's no other judges like Vera. It's a bit like if you said there are 25,000 mafia in New Jersey when you had Tony Soprano sitting in his vest, you know, but there's no 250,000 Tony Sopranos who go to psychiatrists and all that if he was a real person. Do you see what I mean? Vera's very, very unusual. She's a true Democrat, and I think you realise that in the first scene. But at the same time, I think you want to know where they are and what the place is and all that, and that's what we tried to show in that first scene. Shall we show them? Unless anyone doesn't want to see it, unless people have seen Sisters-in-Law. Have you seen Sisters? Is that okay, that one? Okay, we'll show the beginning of Sisters-in-Law, David. Chris?
Hello. Morning, please. Legal department, come back. Just let me check your scan.
The man see like the woman see like that man. That's what she said. The woman wants to go back to her man's house.
The man said no. So you're making a complaint against your father for kidnapping your child? You, the father, how did that baby get to him? How did speaking manage go for this man?
Well, it been before my hand as they been can't chop Xmas for my house.
Who can't chop Xmas?
My daughter with this small beginning.
Yes.
The papa been come, the father, Mr. Ngong himself be come for check up whether, for can't see this is begin.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't meet him mother too for
So now you carry the Peking gi?
Well, as in I Peking, madam, na anyway it will be so.
It is called kidnapping. It's not because she's a woman that she's not entitled to her child. Even her own father has confessed that she spent less than a week away and then he already planned a coup and called for you to come and take the child. No, that is not the way to behave. This man married this woman?
Yes, madam.
In which way?
Controversial, madam.
Which country tradition? Which country?
Mbonge
people.
Yes, madam.
The mommy can't make no door. I tell they say no, the way I see the condition for the house. I no feel dream on, I go pay money for my head. And my papa this, then we go for the daddy, I be deny, I say me I no go come. So to them, some people power with the story, the papa say no, even I see person go and I go give money for head, he say no go come for this marriage. That means say you no like it the marriage. I deny for go madam, but the mommy they work out for they go give money for my people then. If you are the suffer so then they suffer me for the kind thing. Because me I be deny me say I don't tell me no five, I don't want tomorrow. I say go back daddy. They go for the work out, go give money. As my father no be see me, they tell the money to the chop.
Yes, so after the dowry, did you join their hands together traditionally and say this is your wife from today henceforth?
Yes, madam.
You be carry this woman in hand so?
No, no been carry.
You call people, you put them inside this man in hand, say take my woman this. So you did not do that, so they were not married. He merely came and gave you some money which you took.
Madam, the thing is, when as soon as he don't be with he don't born picking, it means na massa na.
No, listen,
okay,
you be mistaken. The born I'm not out of wedlock because if mommy no get marriage certificate. You did not marry that lady.
Madam, when I saw this lady, okay.
Listen, I don't want long stories of a lightning flash
not like
in 1940.
Not 1940, madam.
Just tell me, did you go and marry this girl?
So I went straight to the family. I took this 80,000 francs. They gave me a bid that now that you have got a child, you should bring us a pig and some of those small things.
This your daughter has become a merchandise. The way you people play in the village, the way you play with women and children, that's what makes her his wife. 80,000 francs and some pig. All right, madam, tell me what should I do to two of them? You don't want any case?
Yes, madam. I want to make money.
You are sure that you can take care of this baby?
Yes, madam. Even if I want to take food for that, or if they don't look.
What is he crying?
For me, this child is for two of us. I don't say that I've owned the child. If he says
no, you were not entitled to custody. What you did was a very grievous offense. That's what you men do. You just harvest children all over the whole place without marrying the mothers.
Yes.
But don't do that again. If you have another daughter like this, don't do that again. Have you heard?
Yes, madam.
Okay. Go write your withdrawal and bring it.
No, brother.
Thank you, madam.
Yeah, we spent ages choosing that scene.
We did.
Didn't we?
That was a bit of a tricky one.
Yeah.
That one. That's
But
not
actually,
the
how
very
he's cut it, it's very simple how he's done it, and he's kept the. I mean, even though the camera isn't very good in that because people are quite far apart, the girl's quite in the background, and I'm just. But I like the fact that Ollie, if the scene works with some not very good camera in it, you leave it in.
That's great.
Because it keeps the, you know, you can see it's all happening in real time almost. That scene's wasn't much longer than, you know, it's not like...
When I first started editing, I remember sort of wanting to sort of show myself how clever I was, that I could cut two bits together, and it was, oh, look at me, you've got a box of tricks that you can, but the more I've done it, I try to be as kind of invisible as possible, and it's easy because with Kim's stuff and lots of other people's, but especially Kim's, because she's very much in the scene, and even though she doesn't know what's... Well, you were brilliant at the pigeon, weren't you, as you picked it up, but sometimes, even though you don't always know the language, Kim has an amazing intuition to film the right moment and the right character at the right moment.
That's why I'm really glad we're doing this with Ollie, because I think editing, when an editor's really good, you're not actually thinking about it. It's invisible, and I think that's why often we sort of discount editing as being a real craft, because we don't notice it when it works. And what I've learned through working with Ollie, I really watch editing now, particularly things like Mad Men. I watch how they time it and pace it, and that's why I think, because often friends of mine, they say, oh, I'm going to edit my own film, and I think, no, it's really, really nice to have somebody who that's their job and they know what they're doing, because it makes such a huge difference than doing your own edit. Does anyone have any? We've got loads of clips, so we could chat around.
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
At what point is the dialogue translated to English?
Oh, that's a nice, interesting question, because I know lots of people do transcripts. And I remember the last film we did, they said, oh, don't you want transcripts? But I think there's so much work, transcripts. Some poor person typing everything out just seems horrible. And why would you want transcripts? I don't see the point of it. What we do is, like with Zeba with Runaway, or that as well, the person's there all the time and they talk as you're watching it. So I haven't seen any of the rushes, and Ollie and I are watching it for the first time with the person that speaks the language, and they will then talk, they will be the person as they're talking. So then you're seeing the scene very, very fresh. Because let's say you've got 15 hours. 15 hours of transcripts is a hell of a lot of work. And the film's only going to be 2 hours long. So it seems to me a real waste of work. And Ollie will say, no, I don't want that. What he does is, I'll tell you, he's got this book. And it's the only thing I do. I try and watch what he's writing. He'll write a scene down, and if he wants it in the film, he'll give it 3 ticks. If it's definitely going to be in the film, it gets 3 ticks. And if he's thinking about it, it gets 2 ticks. And then some of them get 1 tick. So I'm thinking, if I have a favourite scene, I'll think, I wonder how many ticks it's going to get. And sometimes it doesn't get a tick. And I think, oh no, it's not going to be in the film.
I tell you, Kim's got a book, that she takes when she's shooting. And this is amazing. I think it's amazing. Because sometimes you'll come back and you'll have a whole set of rushes, maybe 20, 30 hours, whatever it is, less. And you will watch the scene, and after she's filmed the scene, she'll make a note of what that story was and how much she thinks it's going to take up in the finished film. So say that last scene, she might have put down 3 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever it was. And that is incredibly unusual, but I imagine it gives you a huge amount
and actually they're normally always, in the last film particularly, it was I had this little notebook, all the scenes I loved and said 3 minutes, 2 minutes. And the reason I do that, to make sure I've got a, film, he's put all the scenes, it's almost identical to what I liked, all the scenes make up the film.
And I'm sure that must really help you in terms of structuring in your head.
Yeah, it does.
As opposed to just accumulating loads and loads of stuff. There's a sense of what you've got.
I don't know how you do it if you weren't doing that. Because then I know I've got that scene with Vera, with Jacqueline, and then I'm thinking, I didn't know that was going to be the beginning, but I always know what the end is, obviously. But then, I'll think, I will have written Jacqueline 3 minutes, and then I'll know I've got that. So then I'll know if somebody comes with a similar story, I don't need to film it. Otherwise, you just have to film everything. It's that sort of thing. But once you know who your characters are, Jacqueline, that girl, wasn't a main character. I will then know that my 5 main characters, I've got Mildred arriving, this happening, and I've got sort of 20 minutes of that character. I've got each of my 4 characters, I've got 20 minutes of each of them, and I need an end of their stories. I've got the beginning, middle, and I need an end. And that's how I sort of... Because sometimes people say, because of what we all do, which is observational, they think you just film everything. And it's really weird. Lots of people think that, and they think you just kind of go like that and film everything, and you're not thinking about... Whereas we really carefully know exactly what we're filming and how long it's going to be in the film and why it's in the film. Oh, I think we all do that, but I'm sure we all do that. Oh, good, he's going to say something. You don't want to say something now? Change your mind.
Just answer my question.
Oh, really? Oh, good. Okay.
My question's sort of following on what you're saying about having a translator and stuff. Do you have a translator on set when you're filming? Because I'm just trying to understand how you say you don't film anything, so you're setting some scenes up, like with the knitting one.
Oh, I never, ever set a scene up. No.
Well,
but I'm not saying it's wrong to do that.
No,
I would never. I think, you know what I think is interesting? I think we all make the films that we want to watch. So, like, I go to a lot of films with my flatmate, Colin, and we like completely different films. I just saw Winter's Bones with it and adored it, and he hated it. So it's not a right or, I'm not saying one way's better than another. But I would be really embarrassed. Vera, that woman there that goes like that at the end, I could never have ever asked her to do anything. I was completely in awe of her, for example. And I think, but I work on camera on other people's films, and often people ask people to do things, and you can't actually tell in the film that they've asked them to do it. But then I think it changes your relationship with that person, that you asked to do something. Because then I think somehow, subtly, they have in their mind that they're doing things for you, whereas I always want people to do things for themselves. I'm not saying any way is different to another, and so maybe sometimes you don't have time, but I wouldn't. So what I would do is, I was standing near, also I try not to move, because I think often people forget we're there, but often they don't, they appeal to us. But if you're moving around, you become an interesting thing in the scene. So me and Mary Milton, who was the sound recordist, we were the only 2 people in the room. And we were standing, Vera's here and I was here, and Mary's there doing the sound, and Vera's got a radio mic on. But and lots of that was in Pidgin, so I didn't need somebody with me, because you get an ear for it very quickly. But if the stuff with Zeba in Farsi, in the Iranian thing, she would touch me if somebody new came that we didn't know and it was worth filming. She would touch me, and then she'd touch me when to stop. And I'd be very still, and and we wouldn't talk in English or anything, obviously not, and I would not necessarily know what that scene was. But once we're following a person, you then know what their story is, and you know what you're filming completely, because for example, Mariam's coming to the court to try and get her children custody, so you know exactly what's happening and you know how to film it. So then she has to look after me less. So at the beginning she's looking after me more, and then I'm less dependent on her as the story progresses. Does that make sense?
Can we show this? Sorry, go on.
No, that does, because you're saying there's no interpreter with you at time.
In Iran, I had somebody with me all the time who became like my absolute best friend, and we were very close, and I trusted her totally, and she trusted me. So what she would do, she'd touch me when something was worth. So like with Monterey, that was actually one of the first things we filmed. We didn't know who Monterey was. We didn't know anything about her. It's much harder at the beginning. So I thought, she's obviously crying. We'll see what her story. We'll just film that little bit in the courtyard. She didn't obviously tell me to film that. But then when Monterey came in to talk to the social worker, she was probably talking to the social worker for about 20 minutes. And you don't want to film the whole 20 minutes. So Zeba would just touch me, and I trusted her, and she was fantastic. We were doing it together. She would touch me to which bits to film.
I was going to say, Kim, maybe we should look at the bit from Rough Aunties, but
okay,
where Mildred speaks to you.
That's quite a long clip there. Do you want to
Is
see
it?
that?
No, okay, well,
we could do that. Let's do that.
I was just thinking, given what you've just talked about, that you...
Yeah, she's actually talking to me though. Yes,
But
okay.
do you want to try that?
Yeah, is that all right, Chris? It's Rough Aunties, and it's called Mildred by the Car. With you. This is actually quite nicely done. How Ollie did this, because we called it interview, but I never do. I never say to somebody, "Will you sit down and talk to me?" I wouldn't do that either, because it feels a bit weird as well. But also, I do think that the time when somebody is going to talk to you is always quite near the beginning in a weird way. It's a bit like when you're at school and you're making friends, and somebody, I don't know, I'm sure we all remember that when you met somebody and they would tell you about themselves as a way of getting to know you. And I knew that Mildred, also, this is a film about child abuse in South Africa, and one of the things they were very, very tough on was this whole idea of them being survivors and not victims. So you were able to talk about you wanted to talk about what happened to you, and they would encourage the children to talk about what had happened to them. And that made me think as well, I won't bore you with what I had to, but anyway, and then Mildred, I could see that morning that she was upset about something. And what Ollie did, which is why I like this scene, why I put it in one of the ones to choose, was he hasn't just gone, which a lot of editors would do, bang, Mildred's interview, and then it's an interview. He's done it organically, that you could see she was upset. She wouldn't talk to the other person she was working with because she was going away. And you then get a sense, I think, from the clip, I don't know, it'd be interesting to know what you think, that Mildred has talked. It's happened organically. It's not something we've sat her down. She's actually wanted to talk.
And the idea was to obviously make it as much of an experience for an audience that it would be similar to it was for Kim actually being there and being with, wasn't
that's
it?
That's right, yeah. So
yeah.
Is that all right, Chris, to show that one? So hopefully he'll show that one.
I haven't even lived, Mildred.
I thought you got already. I said, I don't know, how can she live without saying goodbye to me?
I would never do that. I would never do
and
that.
I have good news.
What?
That Tobile's mom got 5 years in prison.
Tobile's mom?
Yeah.
Little Tobile?
Little Tobile.
Are you joking? Yes. 5 years?
Yes. Shani called August, and August said she got 5 years.
For what? What was the charges?
Indecent assault, for pushing the pipe on a child's vagina.
Indecent assault. So
yes.
on indecent assault, you got 5 years.
So I got to get
Oh, that's good. Man.
I was screaming. I was so happy. I said the kids are going to be happy now. Thank you.
Well done. Oh, that's fantastic. Hey?
Now I can call the granny.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm going to go on holiday in half an hour's time. What's wrong, Mildred?
Don't know, yeah, that.
Eh?
Bye.
Are you going to say goodbye to me when I leave?
I don't want to talk about it now.
What's wrong with Mildred? Mildred? Hey. What's wrong?
Hello. Hey, hello. Ring, 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 ring. Hello. I remember my first time. Jackie said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not okay." And I started crying because it took me like 8 to 10 years to get counseling. For me, it wasn't easy. I cried and she calmed me down, then we went to the car. We sat, we spoke for the first time, to find someone to listen to you, to give you love. She's a mother. She's my mom. It's only that when I told my mom, I said,
I told her that I was raped, and they did not believe me. It was painful for me that my biological mother doesn't believe me, but a stranger can believe me. She can listen to me. She wanted to know more what happened, but my mom did not. It took me a long time to realize that maybe she did not understand, or she did not know how to help me. If it wasn't her, maybe I should have long gone ago. I was going to hang myself, because while I was dealing with that, I was in the training. We're doing at Johari's. And I wasn't okay. Then I asked if I can go home. I had a headache. When I went back home, I found my husband sleeping with my sister in my house, on my bed. Then if it wasn't for her, for the course that I did, and realized that there are challenges outside there, I was going to hang myself. But I didn't do it. I just looked at them and said, oh, fine, go ahead, continue, do whatever you want. It took me a long time, because I thought my husband would change one day, and he never changed. He never changed. I think, I don't know, he never changed. And for me, it was, I never thought that one day I'll start again. I thought, oh, everything is okay. Though I was raped, I got a husband, I got kids, I got a house, everything is... I didn't realize that one day I'll break up with him, because the thing is, I did not grow up with my parents. I didn't want that to happen to my children. Because when I was 8, I used to stay in the family, and I never been a child. Wake up 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, do breakfast for everybody, and I'm the last person to go to school. And my school was miles away. I used to run every day to school. Come back home, 4 o'clock. I have to cook for the people. I never been a child. I never get a chance to be a child. And that's why
I found that really strange and sort of wonderful the way Mildred did that, because she was talking to me, obviously, but she wanted everybody to know. I mean, she really wanted... It's not like, oh, I want to be, I want to be filmed, but she wanted to share that. And because she felt the film would be more honest somehow if her... Because she's helping all these kids that have been raped, if she was able to... It was a mixture between wanting to tell me and wanting to tell you. It's kind of strange. I think we have a very weird job, because what's so strange is people tell you things at times of their own choosing, but you know when you're filming them telling you that they're telling you. I find it all quite magical and strange, because she's actually looking at you, because she's looking into the lens, but she's looking at you. So I found that really interesting. But it's also actually quite... At times it makes me really hate myself, because I don't know what you feel, but I'm filming her and I'm really caring about her. I'm genuinely really with her and caring about her, and I'm discovering something about her. God, she was a child slave, and she never, And at the same time I'm thinking, I've got to hold the camera still, I'm not going to, I mustn't move it, and no point trying to get a cutaway. Ollie will just do jumps, it's okay. I'm thinking about other things as well. It's kind of very strange. So it makes you into this very split person, where you are caring, but you're also something else. And there's times when it gets much more extreme. You know, it was a safe situation. She wanted to do it. It was her time. She chose it. Mildred, Eureka had gone off. You know, but at the same time, it's quite an odd thing to do, to be actually filming it. You know, so I don't know what people think about that. But there'll be more extreme situations where somebody's actually something really bad's happening to somebody you love, and you're filming it. And if you were being a normal human being and not a filmmaker, you'd probably be either withdrawing in a respectful way or hugging them. You wouldn't be in between filming them. It's actually quite
really
odd.
Yeah.
It's an odd job that we do, I think. But I'm glad you've shown that. I was a bit
it's
stuck because it seemed long, but I hope you're all right with it. By the way, the beginning of Sisters-in-Law, I chopped it a bit because I was very aware we only had a very short time. We've only got an hour and a half. And the beginning of Sisters-in-Law, there's a sort of driving shot with music. It's much more sort of cinematic how Ollie's cut it, but I chopped it a bit. He said, "Where's the music?" Yeah. So, yeah.
I remember well. We cut that again and again. I mean, not
the Mildred thing, because it is jump cuts, and I don't normally. But there's nothing else you can do. And then he took a bit about the child slave out, and then he put it back in again. Because normally interviews are much shorter. It seems quite. I don't know if people felt it long, but the child slave thing was quite important, really. That she hadn't had a childhood, and what her job is to try and give childhood back now to kids that have had it taken away. So it seemed. But we were uneasy with that scene because it seemed a little bit long.
You're always, it's a mosaic, obviously, and you're trying to create plot points, really, that reveal the greater whole of the story that you're trying to tell. And this is a woman that didn't have a childhood, so you get the sense that there are a lot of other characters in the charity that she works for, Bobby Bear, that probably had the same thing happen to them. So one person's story in a way
Stands
represents
for everyone else.
exactly,
that's right. Yeah,
exactly.
And that's what she does. Yeah. And also because in a group this size, I'm sure quite a few of us have either been raped or been abused as children. You know, I'm sure in this. I mean, that's what's so shocking as well, and why I feel so proud of the Rough Aunties, because I think we're particularly bad in this country we do think of them as taboo subjects. We've no idea how many people have said, "How can you film these children talking about rape?" As if they're the ones that should be ashamed, and they're very, very clear in that we have to break this taboo about not talking about things. I'm sorry, this isn't actually about editing, but I mean, what's so brilliant about them is they're saying it's only when we say we can talk about it and it's out in the open and we see it as a mugging or an assault, or, you know, we don't have this horror that we'll talk to each other. And then those Catholic priests, for example, won't get away with doing it with 200 children because they'll come home and you'll tell your parents, and they won't say, "Don't say anything," you know. We'll say, "Oh God, he just did that to me," and it'll stop, you know. So that's why she wanted it in the film. It wasn't because she wanted to, you know, it's done in a very humble, self-effacing way, the way she's done that. It's not for any other reason that she thought, I want to tell Kim now, and I want to tell you now. Then I'm equal with the children I'm helping. I'm not somebody that's apart from it. It's happened to me too, she's saying. And then I could say to her, it's happened to me. And then we discovered it happened to all of us, you know. And then we can actually start to stop it happening anymore, you know. So that's why it's in the film. But we've got, I mean, there's the other clip in... We've got lots of clips. I mean, I wish we had long... Or maybe you're very happy it's only an hour and a half, but we've got lots of clips that say different things. I mean, Ladi's court case is rather fun.
Yeah, go for
I don't
it,
know,
yeah.
should we go with that one?
Yeah.
Because that was one where when we looked at the rushes, usually it's quite clear. The scene has a kind of inner logic to it, and it's quite clear. Actually, or we could show Jackie in the Blood. Could we show Jackie in the Blood? That's a Rough Aunties, another clip from that film. Because that, if you watch how Ollie's edited that, it's actually very few shots. And Jackie there was so much blood in the room, and Jackie was actually wiping it up for an awfully long time. And sometimes I do film more than I should, because I just think I'm giving Ollie a lot of bits to choose from. But you've only chosen 2 shots, which I find
I think the longer that I've been editing, the more I trust myself, or trust my instinct, which is, you know, it's a nice feeling sometimes. And you can. I'm getting better at watching a scene for the first time and then seeing what is the core of it, really. And I could tell when I first watched this. Gosh, it's quite a scene, but I could tell.
It's going to be very short.
Yeah, but there's one shot that I can remember that you'll see that tells so much. So yeah.
Because that's what we do. We watch everything for the first time together, and Ollie we do it quite slowly. Sometimes it takes 2 weeks to watch all the rushes because we don't watch all the rushes all the time. Ollie will watch something, and then you'll just sit there, and you'll think for a while. And I won't say anything, and you know. And that's when he's doing all the work because he's actually thinking, and he's remembering it and how he's going to cut it once he's decided that that's a scene in the film. And I think that's when you do all the kind of really, really hard work.
Definitely.
Is when you're watching it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the hardest bit.
Where? Bobby Bear! This where the robbery was. Oh, shame. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Okay, ballistics has been here. Just see if we don't tamper with anything. Oh, shame, shame. Oh, the poor kids. The guy had good blood clotting quantities, which ought to save him a bit.
King's Hospital wants 50,000 rand deposit. We don't have 50,000 rand deposit. So we're going to try and see if we can transfer him to McCourt's.
How much is McCourt's?
3,000.
Okay, I've got 3,000.
No,
in my
his
bank
sister's
account.
she took 20,000 rand loan now to put him in Kingsway, but it's going to cost her about 150,000 rand in Kingsway. So we're going to, she said I must just get bank details, she'll transfer all the cash into my account.
Because I've got cash if you need cash. Is he okay? Tell me about him.
He's on drips, but he said it's whitish, and he's in this other hospital that's very dirty. My auntie's gonna try to transfer him back to Kingsway.
Yeah, we're going to help him try and do that. Okay. Right. Are you scared?
Yes, because they got the house keys. They've got the house keys.
Well, we've got the guys here. Changing everything. How's that? And what will happen is we'll get the house keys and everything changed, okay?
Because they got their own thing.
Do you want a cup of tea or something? Oh, sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
I've got a beautiful lady called Hanukkah. She's a psychologist.
Yeah, that's funny.
And I'd like you to talk to her. What do you think?
Yeah, no, the story, everything is started off.
Hey. And how's your mom?
My mom's fine. She's with my daddy, and my sister's with my daddy as well.
Okay, we're just cleaning everything up, okay? Do you mind? What we're going to do is we're going to clean everything up and we're going to do your laundry for you. How's that? So you don't have to do it. How's that? Hey? Shame, my baby. You're being so brave, hey? You're so brave. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. That's my sister. She opened her eyes. This time when they broke in, I was sleeping and then I heard fire shots and my daddy was going outside, and then my daddy wanted to come in there by the passage, and they come and they shoot at my daddy, and he took his gun and he tried to shoot one of them, I think around about here, because and then they pinned him down to the floor and they shot at him here and in the hand, my father, and then there was lots of blood on the floor, and then one of them went over my daddy, and we tried to strangle him, but then he pushed her away and he tried to shoot my mommy, but there was no gun, there was no bullets left in it.
God is good. And your mum fought him.
Excuse me?
Your mum fought him.
Yeah.
It's only like 3 shots. He's chosen one in the room, which is what he said, that shot. And you know, like when people say this whole fly on the wall thing, which I find a bit weird, it's very clear that we're in the room with Jackie, and she was very happy. She was scared of going in the room. It really smelt horrible, and it was kind of quite freaky for her to go in to a room where somebody she's very close to has been shot. And I like, you know, that sometimes people say, oh, tell people not to look at you or not to talk to you and all that. I like the fact she's talking to us, but she's talking to herself, really. She's talking aloud. And that was the very first shot. She's just seen it for the first time. And I think that was right. I went on filming as she was wiping up, but actually what Ollie's done is he's chosen the very first shot when she sees it for the first time. And then actually you don't need any more. You know, I like, that's a really interesting scene. I'm glad we showed that, because that, you know, I said I'd have probably had loads of shots of all the blood and, you know, the Bible with the blood on it, and then, you know, and all the, but actually I love it. It's just one shot, and then one shot about the hospital and one shot with the girl. And that's why I think it is kind of closer to the experience of watching fiction in a way, because it's like there's no fiddling around and you're not aware of the editing, even though it's really carefully done and he's really put a lot of thought into it. The editing looks very simple.
But I think we try to do the same. I mean, when Kim's shooting, I sort of imagine her metaphorically kind of rooted and thinking and feeling and being completely in that moment. And there's something about the editing that I try, and if there was lots of cuts, I think it doesn't feel like you're there. You've got to feel like you're there. That's what it's about. And I'm sort of metaphorically steeling myself too, and making sure that I'm holding... Every shot has to count, and every shot has to be on for the right length of time. And you can only tell that by watching it again and again. It's about editing, for me, is also about concentration. Just over a 10-week period, 12-week period, however long we're editing, you have to concentrate, and you watch that scene 50 times or 20 times in that time, I don't know, something like that. And you have to just make sure it's the right length, because if, you know, something like that, if you overplay it, if you try to hype it up, it just shows. And so hopefully that's not too...
I would have hyped it up, you see. I know I would have had it long.
I enjoyed watching it then.
You know, I'm not saying I would have... I'm so happy the way he's done it. I know I would do it really badly. I know I would.
But I was enjoying the fact that you got... I'd forgotten that we gave such a long preamble before the little girl speaks, and somehow you could have just cut to her saying, my daddy this and my mum did that. But somehow the relationship between the two is really important. And us, really, you need time to understand. I mean, I know it's harder for you guys because you haven't seen the whole film, but even when you watch the whole film, it's such a traumatic thing. You need time to understand what situation it is that you're in. You really need to feel that and be there. And so hopefully spending a little bit more time with Jackie and that whole preamble to...
Yeah, wanting a cup of tea and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
See, that's what I like. I think a lot of editors would have just cut. I don't know what people think, because maybe people would have preferred that. I think a lot of people would have cut to the little girl just saying, I watched my father being shot and my sister opened her eyes. Because that is... But then you wouldn't know that Jackie's telling her that they were clearing up, that she's got a relationship with a little girl, and that she tries to get her to see a psychiatrist. The little girl's having none of it, you know. I quite like that. And just the kind of way she's made it, what Jackie's done is she's normalised it. She's made everything very ordinary for her. We're doing your laundry, we're going to clear up. She's kind of, it's all part of getting that little girl to cope, which I find... But maybe other people would have had it much shorter. I don't know what people think.
Has anyone got any questions? Yeah.
I just feel that it feels very honest, because we all know that it's perfectly possible to manipulate things by editing. And it feels really honest to see something where there's so few cuts, because obviously that is how it happened. Whereas sometimes you see stuff and it's been chopped so heavily and covered with stuff that you don't really know the real truth of the scene, and you're hoping that it's not been manipulated, but you don't really know. And I really like that sense.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
That's good.
It's quite interesting that you mentioned earlier about the when a lot of television sort of gives you a sort of preview or a taster or a teaser of what's going to happen next. Do you find that there's ever a sort of and then you mentioned now that you wanted to sort of really let that scene breathe. It just seems really, really rare in television to sort of allow that sort of ability to actually really, really go into a scene. Two things. Do you ever feel is there ever a pressure on you to kind of almost make the cut to the sort of the big moment rather than sort of feeling the build up? And what advice would you give to filmmakers who actually do want to sort of let the story breathe and evolve when there is sort of, certainly like in my experience, there's often a sort of pressure from to get something very quickly, and you feel that the story hasn't really evolved properly.
I think one thing is that the scenes are actually very short. It probably seems long watching that, but the whole of those 4 scenes there, and what is it? It's about 4 minutes, I think, all of that. Yeah, it's only 4 minutes, and you've got clearing the blood, you've got the talk about the hospital, so there's a whole, is he going to die, isn't he going to die? He actually dies, but they're trying to move him into a hospital where he can be properly looked after. Then you have all the men round the garden, and then you have the little girl. So it probably seems long because he's only used 1 shot, right? Because each one is 1 shot. But the whole thing is only 4 minutes. So the bit with the little girl is only about 2 minutes. So they're not actually long scenes. And I think that's what I think Ollie is doing, is he's making it seem long, but it's actually very short. I know that sounds weird, but time is so subjective that you could have 4 minutes, which would seem very quick if you had lots of cuts. But actually, she's only in that room with the blood for about 30 seconds. Do you see what I mean? So, how I probably would have cut it in my clumsy way, I probably would have done 30 seconds, but it would have been lots of little, I would have probably chopped it to try and get, she goes in, there's loads of blood, and she comes out and it's all gone. Something like that. I would have thought very literally. That's what I mean about editing. It's such a strange thing. We don't need to see to clear it all up. I often tend to find myself, I'm getting slightly better gradually, but I tend to be very literal. I sort of think, okay, if you gave me that footage again, maybe I filmed for maybe 8 minutes in that room, probably as lot as that, maybe 7 or 8 minutes. So I would probably think, I want Jackie coming in, she's just arrived. I wouldn't have the courage to just have the first shot when she sees it for the first time and then you see the blood. I would probably have thought that we need to have her cleaning it all up. Do you see what I mean? So what Ollie's doing is he's going to the heart of, he's trying to get the heart of the scene in 1 shot. Is that right, Oz?
It is, but he also wants to know what advice we can give in terms of no, impossible.
Do you know, because I would advise you to work with, not do it yourself. I'd say do it with a really good editor. That's all I can think, because then they can't cut it any shorter, because it's actually really short. Because all the clips we're showing you are actually quite short, but they probably seem longer than they are. I mean, we did tussle with Mildred's thing, because that is quite a long scene. It's probably the longest interview we've ever done. It's about 3 minutes, that bit with Mildred, maybe 2.5 minutes. And we sort of thought that there should be less, and there's lots of bits of it, which we've done with the jump cuts. But it was because we thought we wanted each bit of her story, because we wanted her to relate to all of you, but also have her own particular story, which was quite unusual, that she never grew up at home and she wasn't a child, so that seemed particular to her. Is that all right? Did I?
Yeah, thank you.
There's somebody there.
Is that working? Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
You mentioned earlier about how when you're shooting something, it occasionally limits your field of view and maybe your capacity to interact or make a subject feel comfortable. I was just wondering what you felt were the advantages and disadvantages to shooting your own stuff as opposed to using a cinematographer.
I'm often aware that I'm not very good at expressing myself, because I don't think it limits. It wasn't that I was saying. It was just something in my mind, which is when I'm filming something, I'm very aware that that part of my mind is split off into the actual filming, and it's just a guilt in my mind that I am caring about that person. It doesn't show, but part of me is thinking, so like when Jackie's clearing the blood, I'm thinking, fuck, and the smell, and I am upset, somebody that I know is being murdered or might die, but at the same time I'm thinking wide shot so you can see the blood. It's that more that. It doesn't limit. Jackie was so pleased we were there, you know, so it wasn't like she's thinking, she doesn't know I'm thinking that, and I'm just being really honest with you. It's like a really I feel it quite a shameful thing to admit. I'm so glad she doesn't know that at the time. And then they're discussing getting him into a hospital to save his life, and I'm actually trying to get the stillest, best shot I can. That's what's weird. But what I like about it is that when Mildred's talking, she's talking to you and to me. I like that, and it feels nice. So I wouldn't want to give that. But the main reason I decided at the very beginning to do my own stuff, is to do my own camera, is because I do find it difficult, and we're all different again, that I wouldn't want to actually be telling somebody how to do it, or asking them what they've shot or how they've done it. I know that I've done it exactly how I've done it, and I've done the best I can, and if it's no good, then I've only got myself to blame. I'm not going to ask anyone else, did you get the little girl and Jackie together, you know, because some people might have zoomed in, you know, did you hold it steady when it was like that and not zoom, because I don't really like zoom. I try not to zoom, even though, and if I was cutting that scene that you've all seen with Jacqueline about losing the baby, I would have gone to a close-up of her and chopped the zoom off. That's another reason it's nice to work with Ollie. I would have got rid of all those zooms and those rather fast pans and messed up the rhythm of the scene, because that's not very well shot, because I had to do it like that because Jacqueline was far away right at the back of the room, and if I'd kept it on wide, Ollie wouldn't have been able to cut it at all. But also I wanted her face. I wanted her to say, your daughter's been merchandised, on a close-up of her face. So I'm thinking, so then I have to zoom in, you see, and for Ollie to cut the scene how he wants to cut it, sometimes he doesn't cut the nasty camera work out. So, do you see what I mean? So, and it's my fault, and I've got nobody else to blame, and that's why I want to do it myself. And the sound's always perfect. She does this, I mean, isn't the sound, that's another thing I'm really obsessed with, is sound.
So important.
And so many people now that are really close friends are working on these cameras with the sound on the camera. And most of the scenes that are in all the films, you couldn't do it like that. You wouldn't be able to get good sound. And actually, I could show you a scene where it's completely, would have been impossible. Should we show that? And
Yeah,
that was
I
a
think
scene that was a real feat of editing this scene. This is Ladi's court case, and it's part of Sisters-in-Law. And this is one of the rare scenes where we watched it. And because the scene is only 5 minutes long, but actually the court cases take forever, you know, and it was a lot. I was shooting, all, you know, like all the day with breaks, you know, just not breaks cups of tea, but just stopping, obviously. But it was shot over like sort of 8 hours. And how Ollie's cut it, when you watch it, it just looks... And that there again, he's used very, very few shots, and everything, he's chosen the shots to tell the court case scene. But also, you couldn't have done that without a sound recordist, because what Mary's got is a long boom where she's getting the sound, and also radio mics on the judge and radio mics on the defendant. So she's mixing about 5 different tracks. So it's a scene I know we're not supposed to be talking about sound recording, but it's a scene that's about editing and sound recording.
Yeah,
it's really, it just wouldn't physically be able to do it.
It gives you so much information. And
well, you wouldn't be able to hear them.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, true.
So we'll see this.
Yeah.
Is that true? Did you beat her?
I didn't, but I have something to say.
Oh, no, you will say it. Yeah. Did you beat her?
I didn't. Did not beat her. Yes.
So, what do you have to say in respect of that when your wife left you? How was she living?
She was living a loose life.
She was living a loose life.
She was not.
Objection, sir.
Go ahead. I will not take it.
Objection, sir.
That is barrister and this one.
Leading questions. And at this point, I would like to draw the court's attention to the trend of this examination.
We are not impeaching anything.
That's why I'm saying that we will not do that.
Yes,
go ahead.
Yes. We're just merely giving the relevant facts.
Remember that adultery is an offense, and therefore must be proved beyond reasonable doubt.
She was fond of going down to her parents' place at Hausa quarters without my permission. In the Shia law of the Muslimic, a woman has no right to leave her house without taking permission from the husband, and the husband accepts it or not.
Objection, sir. Is he an expert in Muslim law?
Objection retained. Go ahead.
Yeah, after testing the sweetness of a loose life for 7 months in Kribi, PW1 became ungovernable in the matrimonial home of accused, or in their matrimonial home. She became ungovernable as a married wife.
According to you, you actually saw your wife commit adultery?
Not that I saw her committing adultery.
How many times did you see them together in a hotel or in a drinking place?
My Lord, I have not been searching for them in hotels.
How many times answer
I have not seen.
Because you didn't catch them in bed, you have no pictures, you have no letters.
That's what I'm saying, that I don't find any familiarity.
So what was it that would lead a reasonable man to think that they were sleeping together? What did you see?
The action I saw proved that they had some good links between themselves.
The action, which one? The question is there. Which action?
The action I saw be their communication between themselves made me to believe that they have
what communication?
Links between themselves.
But that is what I want you to tell the court. What were the elements of this communication?
I told the court that she has been going down Hausa quarters each time and communicating with the man.
Oh, you were following her there and listening to her conversations?
My Lord, a woman cannot leave the house without the acceptance of the husband, or the husband knowing where she is going to. Good. So you are embarrassing me here right now. What you are asking me.
To answer the question.
All the stories you have told in this court, you imagined them.
Was the behavior the rough behavior she behaved, and so whether it was adultery or not, it is the behavior that she caused.
You are now saying that you are not even sure that your wife committed any adultery.
Answer, Mr. Colin, please. Rain is coming. Answer. There are other matters coming.
I am not.
She did not commit adultery?
I am not sure.
Reverend Cole, a jealous man is a violent man. Did you or did you not tell her not to leave that house for anywhere until she solved your problem?
Yes, of course.
You did? And she left the house?
Yes, she did so.
And she came back and you embraced her?
Not at all.
You were the angry one and you were the aggressor. That's all for himself.
Mr. Cole, no, please. Cool down. Cool down. Please, don't behave as if, at least, it's a matter of assault. It did not say you kill somebody. It is not alleged that you murder somebody. Please.
Don't worry, she will come back to you. She'll
Hey.
be your wife.
A reverend person like you, reverend, coming to court and crying. What about small children coming here? Please, don't do that. Cool down and, unfortunately, you don't have water. Batata.
He lost his wife too. His wife too. Yeah, no,
We don't have water here. Asha. No, it's okay. No, please, Mr. Cole. Do you want to drink water? Do you want to drink water? It's okay. So keep cool down, please. Before we go ahead, cool down. It's okay now.
Yes, ma'am.
You don't stand strong, No worry. Tomorrow night judgment. We can't hear how the judgment will be tomorrow.
Because you're hearing all the voices, like you can hear the lawyer laughing, and you couldn't get that with. But I've just been told we've only got 15 minutes. It's gone. We've just. So I don't know what to do. I'm panicking now because we've only shown 2 films, haven't we? What do you want to do?
I don't know. Has anybody got any other questions?
Yeah.
Before we'll show another clip, maybe one more.
There's somebody there.
Hello, hi.
Hi.
I was just wondering about the stage of the assembly, how you're approaching that, and how much do you talk, and how much your objectivity, once first watching the rushes, is influenced with the talk to Kim, and just how you're dealing with that. Like, do you watch the scenes and talk about them, or do you watch the whole material and kind of a process that, just that moment where you, as completely objective, are seeing the rushes that Kim has lived through?
So I guess we watch the rushes for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long it takes really, and I make a note of everything. I log everything, and you know, the bits I really like, I write them down, and little ticks, things that I feel that are really, really important to go into the story, and then I guess we just start editing. And yeah, of course, we talk about it once we've viewed the rushes. We talk about it as we're editing, as we're going along. I don't know. I mean, I was thinking about it in terms, that guy over there asked us about how do you make a film where there are long scenes, where you hold stuff, where you know, how does it work in terms of a commissioning editor or whatever. But in terms of us showing it to people, our sort of philosophy, then it's taken probably 2 or 3 films before we got to this stage, was that we waited until it was really quite almost a finished film. We tried to do that on every occasion, to show it to people, a commissioning editor or whoever, when it was a serious proposition, where it was maybe 5 minutes off in terms of length, or you know, maybe 2 weeks away from being finished. And that, not getting too many opinions, it being a film that Kim and I are making together, for me is really important, because I've done it when I've worked with other people in the past. You have lots and lots of opinions. You can, of course, bring all your friends in and say, what do you think of this and what do you think of that? I think if you need to know what you feel, you really do. And even though that's really, really hard, especially for Kim, who's filmed it, lived through it, and now edited it with me, that's really difficult. And obviously my head's full of it too. But I think you do know. I think you do know when it's roughly right. And of course it's important to get the commissioner in, they paid for it and all the rest of it. But I think it's really important that you wait as long as you can.
I see my job is just protecting Ollie, making him tea, looking after him, and actually not letting anyone in to ask him to show anything. Because I think on the first film, we haven't done that for ages. We might get people in to see something, you know, or we might show people a rough cut, like Friends, or. But actually, it can be really depressing because everyone has a different opinion. And I know a friend of mine, he always shows loads of people. He does that loads of times. He does loads of screening to loads of people. And then he asks people what they think. And everybody says something different. And then he does.
Get lost.
Yeah,
I mean, I've got lost loads of times in the past for that. Someone gives you an opinion, you think, oh yeah, there's not enough journalism, there's not enough this, there's not enough that. But actually, that's why I say that process of watching the rushes is so important. In a way, the film is obviously a distillation of those rushes and a distillation of the experience of watching those rushes, not what someone else brings to it, not what the commissioner wants to see or how much journalism or what facts there are in it. It's the material, it talks to you, it literally does. You have this, why I talked about watching Runaway with Kim for the first time in Farsi. I was watching something that I didn't understand, but the longer you watch it, you do have a sense of what you're being told. You get more and more from it, and it's the same when you're editing. Even if it's in your own language, you can tell, I think. You trust yourself, you can tell.
But then that's not saying, I mean, I'm sure we're all different, and I'm sure lots of people like showing lots of times to different people, but that's just how we
how it works.
How we
us,
sort of
definitely.
protect ourselves. It's just
we
have one screening usually,
Yeah.
just one screening.
Yeah.
When we're happy with it, and then just do one screening.
Can I?
Hi, Dick. Yeah, go for it.
No, I was just thinking. You know, it's taken you guys a while to get to the position where you could just sort of almost demand that you have one screening with a commissioning editor.
We don't demand.
No,
We
okay.
just plead.
But I mean demand by
very evasive.
implication, by protection, keeping the door locked. But if you think, can you remember back, Kim, to when you know, this has taken a while, when you weren't so sure of your relationship with the outside people who have sort of commissioned,
and
how you
friends,
and in those circumstances, how did you protect yourself? How did you give them an offer they couldn't refuse?
Well, actually, I do remember it really clearly because in Divorce Iranian Style, which was the worst time really, and he knows this, so I'm not saying anything that I haven't said to him, and he's a really nice guy. He's called Peter Moore, and I remember him coming in. And there's a little girl in the film, and the little girl is like a sort of little wise voice through the film. She says things like, I'm never getting married. She's 6. I'm never getting married, all these rubbish men I see. And then she pretends to be a judge. And there's little scenes, not much, through the film. And I remember really vividly him coming to see the film as a rough cut and saying, you've got to get rid of the little girl, and being really upset and thinking. And then what I did was I said, oh, okay then, right, okay, see you later, Peter, this, and then saying to Barry, it was Barry Vince, we're not going to get rid of the little girl, he'll forget he said that, because they're so busy, and they go to other films. So we didn't cut the little girl out, and when he came back, we put something else in we knew he wouldn't like, which he then said, oh, cut that out, and we just stalled, and we got exactly what we wanted. And I've actually told him, and I said, oh, you wanted the little girl out? And he said, I did, didn't I? Mentally ill. He made a joke about it. But, they're so busy and so stressed, and they've got so much to do, that sometimes I think it is difficult for them. They've probably seen another film that day, and probably thought, oh, this annoying child, let's get rid of her, and, But I'm really glad that I'm not somebody that likes having fun. I know people, I'm not very good at being combative, with people, particularly not it's your boss, it's somebody who's given you all the money and you're really grateful to them. Because it took 2 years to find somebody to give me the money for that. He was the only person that would fund it, and I was so grateful to him, so I didn't want to say no. But at the same time, I was absolutely I knew that the little girl should be in. So it's very difficult, and I think we all deal with it in different ways, and it is painful. Because like a really dear friend of mine, I remember going to see her rough cut. We were in the editing room next door. It's when you were there. And she showed us this wonderful film, and it was all these kids coming to England. And there were 3 stories of these 3 kids. And then it went to where they were now. And I remember we said, oh, he's going to love it, it's fine. The commissioning editor came in, and he said, oh, you've got to put how they are now, and then have them coming to England. And I said, oh, Daisy, don't worry, just do it the way you want and he'll forget. But she didn't. And I'm sure, and she now really regrets it, because I'm sure he wouldn't have remembered, because it was so obviously a bad idea, and I'm sure he wouldn't have remembered if she'd left it the same way. I'm convinced of that, because it was so obviously, and she said, oh, look, he's wrecked, she cut it how he wanted and wrecked the film. Is it? It's a very weedy response. It's being very weedy. Oh, no. Yeah.
How do you find such interesting characters?
Well, with Mildred, what happened with Mildred, I went to do the research, because I'm so glad you've seen Mildred, actually. I'm glad that Ollie chose that clip, even though maybe I don't know. But Mildred, it was kind of this thing, I said about school. I went to do the research, and I always think, when I had to go and do the research, because Jackie, who the from Rough Aunties. It was really good because Ollie was there. She came to ask us to make the film, and it never happened to before. And she was a bit much, and we didn't know. She's the one that's wiping up the blood, and she just talked and talked and talked and talked, and said, "You've got to come and film us." And I thought, Ollie, this woman seems really scary. I don't know if I can make this film, or it's so weird somebody coming to ask you, and will they demand editing rights, or what will happen? So I knew I had to go to meet them all and see if everybody in the group wanted to be filmed, because it was going to be so intimate. But at the same time, I knew I didn't want to get to know them, because I don't do that thing that people do, which is also different. You go and research for ages, and you're meant to get to know people and get their trust. That seems very strange to me, because I'm not there to make friends with them. I'm there to make a film, and I want to be there with the camera from the very beginning. But I met Mildred, and it was kind of like love at first sight. It was this extraordinary... I just thought, oh, God, you're wonderful. I loved her. You know, I just thought she was fabulous. And she sort of seemed to quite like me, and I thought, okay. And I said to Paul when we got back in the car, she's going to be the main character. And it was just that gut thing, really. So it's not... I don't have a really good answer for that. It's just that I thought I liked her, and she seemed to quite like me, and I knew we'd get on. And she used to... but then I kept away from her, and I only met them very briefly, because I thought... I knew we'd start talking to each other, and I wanted it to happen when we were filming. I didn't want her to say, I've never been a child, and, no, Mildred, wait till I get the camera next week. Do you see what I mean? So, and that thing with Mildred is quite near the beginning of the film, and it was very near the beginning of getting to know her. So I was getting to know her on film. It's what I was saying earlier about it feeling very odd, because I'm growing to know these people and love these people as I'm filming them, which is quite strange. It doesn't normally work that way. So hopefully the audience is getting to know people as they go along, you know, sort of thing. Because I find interviews a very strange idea, the fact of giving people a particular time that you're going to ask them very intimate questions. I don't actually mind it when I'm doing it for, you know, like if I'm doing it for something, you know. But it is quite odd, because you might get them at the wrong time, or I so prefer it, and that's why I like the way Ollie cut that scene, and I'm glad he chose that, because he's cut it in a very sort of, just as it happened, you know, that she says, she goes upstairs, and then she starts talking. It's not like an interview that's in a film, cut in with something else in front of it. Do you see what I mean? Because Dick, who asked that question behind... I work with him at the film school, and often students will say to us, they'll say, oh, Dick, I had a really good chat to somebody, and when I took the camera out, they wouldn't talk to me. And we always say, well, it's much better to have the camera there at the beginning. It's quite obvious, really. People don't seem to do that anymore. But, have the camera at the beginning, and then you're talking to them as you're getting to know them, really. So it's not really an interview. It's a funny word, interview, because it makes it sound like a job interview, isn't it? It's not really... It's a chat that you have with people, and you have the camera with you.
I think there's another similarity in the editing. Somehow, I was just thinking about it. Kim kind of is drawn to people and meets people, and they kind of put themselves into the film. I know it sounds odd, but they
do.
They do. There's something about the editing that, where if you watch it, as I was just saying before, and concentrate on it enough times, it tells you, or the character or a situation tells you, this is really important, this is a real, you know, pivotal moment, or an important kind of link in the film. If you listen to it, there's something about that for me. The film does have a kind of life of its own. It's really strange. Sometimes I feel like I'm wrestling something, and you hold down one bit and another sort of difficult bit shoots up from the side, and then you've got that bit. But ultimately you wrestle it down, and it tells you. There's something about the characters and the story that speak to you if you listen.
My real worry is the bit that I find really scary, which is why for the weeks that we're watching the rushes in the cutting room are very scary for me, because I think, I don't say anything, and I think, oh, I wonder if Ollie's going to like Mildred. You know, is he going to like her? Is he going to want her in the film? And that is quite scary, because it's such a personal thing. And he might meet Mildred and think, I don't really want her in the film. Do you see what I mean? So I have to really... so that's when I'm kind of peering over to see if she gets a tick or not. So, because maybe there's like 2 main characters in Rough Aunties, and maybe I've filmed 3 or 4. So you said to me, maybe there's other people.
And I try and block out what Kim thinks about them, because
yeah,
ultimately, as I said, you know, you're trying to listen to what tells the story best. the film comes first, not who Kim loves the most.
Then it's very weird, because
True.
when he met Mildred, he ran up and hugged her, and she thought, who's this
Yeah.
weird man? Didn't you?
I didn't. Yeah, I did. I did hug her, but I didn't just run straight up and hug her. I did. We had an amazing conversation. God, yeah, she's an amazing woman. Amazing woman. Yeah.
Anyone other questions? Oh, good.
Sorry, I got another question. How long did it take you guys to find each other? And when you did, how did you know that it was that you guys gelled and that you worked really well? What were the signs?
He was recommended by Peter Dale, who'd worked with Ollie. But I suppose for me, it was what was really nice is that Ollie isn't at all fierce. I'd worked with editors before that were quite... Well, I'd worked with different editors. I worked with one editor and he says, where's your paper edit? And I felt really embarrassed. And it was like I hadn't done my homework. And he would wait for me to come in and then he'd say, what are we going to cut today? And that's extreme. And I don't know if anyone's worked with that, but he didn't like working with me because I wanted him to explore it with me and he didn't want to work like that. And he thought I would have come in with something to show him. Even though I obviously had the scenes in my mind, how I saw the film, I wanted to do it with him. And then I worked with other editors who have been told me that the film's no good all the time, and I've been quite upset. And then I've had to say, no, it is, we'll get there, it'll be fine, and I'm reassuring them all the time. And I found that difficult. And I was looking for Ollie, really, all the time, and somebody who'd be kind and wouldn't be get really grumpy and would enjoy the job, and we could work together and have a nice time together. And who would be very gentle with the way he cut the film. So he wouldn't start whacking into it straight away. He would look at it and see what he wanted. And he's very gentle with the film. I don't know if you can tell, the way he cuts is very gentle. And we're all different and we like different, we make different films. But so now I know I can trust that, I can hope that if I meet someone like Mildred, that Ollie will like her as well. And that he'll be very kind to her in the film. He'll let her go up the stairs and he'll let her say her little thing to Eureka. He'll lead you into the interview, which we like calling it, very gently, so that you're ready for her. He won't just bang it in. He just won't have interview. The interviews come up very gradually. And it's funny because in Sisters-in-Law, there's no interviews at all. There's only one, which happened right near the end of the film, when I could speak a bit of pidgin with Mary, the two of us. And we'd got to know our main characters very well, and they asked us about our own childhoods, and we told them about us, and then they started to talk and we filmed them. And I remember once Ollie said, that's my favourite scene. It's a little tiny bit about they were married and they didn't know what happiness was, and they didn't really know what marriage was, and they were only 13 and that sort of thing. But it wasn't something we planned. It happened as an exchange of our childhood memories, really, at the end. And I thought, I shouldn't say to people, because I say things to you, all friends. I say, I hate shooting interviews, I don't like interviews, and I'd rather have a film without interviews. And that's not true either. Because actually sometimes, it's just the word, really. Sometimes when somebody opens up and tells you something, it's a really nice way of getting to know people. So, and that's why this thing of, I do say, no, I've never, but those moments, and when Ollie said, I thought, oh gosh, and there's only one in the film, but those moments are quite precious when somebody's telling you something that you couldn't know just by watching.
Kim, I've just been told that we need
Have
to
you?
wrap
I was told
up.
and I forgot.
All right.
Yeah, I was told
I'm sorry,
ages
but we
ago
need
that
to.
we've got to go. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
How many weeks does it normally take you to cut a film? And are there certain stages that you reach after a certain amount of...
We're not gay.
after a certain amount of time, or does that change with each film?
He cuts them very quickly.
Sorry, was the question how long it
many
takes?
weeks?
How many weeks?
6 weeks.
Sometime. The last one, Pink Saris, took a long time to cut. It was all in Hindi. It was, very proud of it. It's a lovely film, but it was difficult. So some are harder than others, but maybe Runaway was very quick, but then you didn't shoot very much. I don't know, something like...
The overall shape is about 6 weeks.
6 weeks,
You'll
probably.
have the film
Watch
in
it for
6
2,
weeks.
cut it for 4, then it's in some sort of a manageable order, and then you can start playing around with the structure of it, really. So normally Kim and I edit for about 10 to 12 weeks, yeah, something like that.
But then he does all the subtitles so that when the commissioning editor comes in, it's all subtitled, and that took about 2 weeks. So it was 9 weeks to edit, and then 3 weeks. The subtitles is what took the time.
Lots of subtitling,
yeah.
And clearly with respect to where you make the cut, when you mentioned you were watching scenes like up to 50 times, how do you maintain a sort of fresh-eyedness to it? In a sense, the first cut might be the wrong cut, but then it becomes the right cut with sort of watching it again and again, perhaps, maybe. But just how you.
I don't know how you can tell. You just have to concentrate. And if you don't get it right that day, then you just have to know that you're going to get it right. Sometime soon. Try not to give yourself too hard a time about. Sometimes I go into something and I think, oh, this is a really tricky scene. There's lots of different characters playing out lots of different things, and I think I've got to get this right first time. But actually, like I said about Kim filming, I think if you just try and keep calm and just work steadily through it, it's the same with the whole process, really. Then you ultimately, I think you can tell, or together we can tell.
That court scene was really tough to do, even though it looks very simple. Because it went on for so long and there's so many characters in it, it would have been very tempting to have the judge that comes in and bangs on the door. There's lots of her in it, but he just took those. That took quite a long time to cut, to make it short. It's only about 3 minutes, that scene. But I think that's what takes the time, is just finding the kind of core of the scene that tells the story, really. I think that's what
the thing that we do, I'm sure lots of people here do the same thing, but is have notes of, maybe sometimes post-it notes or cards or whatever, and then you've got the structure of the film outside of the computer. It's on a notice board or something, and then you can see it in terms of bits of paper as opposed to always constantly being in the computer, which I think if you're in the computer editing too much, then you can get lost. But if you're outside of it and somehow have it on bits of paper and maybe say what each scene is called and then what it represents, then it gives you a certain distance, and that helps you to kind of structure it.
And he never works for more than about 5 or 6 hours a day, because I think after you've done, and I remember when I very first worked with him, actually, that's the only thing I can remember, he sent me an email saying, I won't work longer than 10 to 6. And I thought, ooh, but actually that's so right, because I think people make editors work such long hours.
Yeah.
And if you get past a certain time, you can't think anyway.
And I think you do a lot of stuff outside of the editing room anyway, because it's just you're awash with it. It's in your head.
I think that's really absolutely, and he has lots of breaks. Actually, I've got him doing yoga in the cutting room. So we'd have all these breaks where he'd do stuff to kind of, so he doesn't get too tense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't know we did.
Steam coming out my ears. Yeah.
So I think we have to go. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.